Welcome back, Inebri-art. Yeah, man. So like almost 200 episodes ago, we were in the dark days of COVID, and we were starting to interview people that when this whole podcast thing started, I was like, I'm only going to interview people when I can be in the room with them. And then COVID hit, and I'm like, all right, well, that's going to change. And we got to talk to so many cool people. We just kind of kept it up. And episode 180, and we're now like pushing 370 something. Um, we had Rishi from Elephant Stone, and he's back, man. Like, welcome back to the show.
Awesome. That's good to be back.
Yeah. So like we talked very briefly before we started, and like I can't believe it's been that long. Like it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
And then in some ways it feels like it was a lifetime ago. So you guys have a new album coming out. Was it February 24th? Is that the right?
February 23rd. Yeah.
23rd. That's pretty close. So is this, I mean, we were talking way back about writing and recording while in lockdown. Is this kind of a product of all that?
I guess so. I mean, you can't have not lived through that and not have it influence your life and art. Yeah, I mean, not to talk about COVID again, but
I know, right? Like it's over ish.
it's over. But it's
Yeah.
it's it's imprints there. I mean, like over COVID, like you said, you kind of had to transition to stuff more, right? You had to do the podcast, like talk to people this way over
Yeah.
Zoom rather than in the room. And for me, it was like I had more time. So I kind of was like, well, I gotta start. I already I already do a lot of stuff myself. Like I have my own label, like I manage
Yeah.
myself. I do this, that. But like for recording and mixing and stuff, I mean, I was like, for Hollow, the album we spoke about
Hmm.
previously, that was recorded at my home studio where I am right now, but I mixed it elsewhere. And so over COVID, I kind of decided I need to figure out how to mix my own stuff. So what did I do? I recorded a French record, a French EP
Oh, okay.
at my home studio. Because that was the thing. My drummer was always like, we're from Montreal, Quebec. Like it's
Yeah.
French here. And he was always like, we should do something in French. And so during COVID, I'm like, why not? I was like, I got time to like do this. And it was hard, man. Like writing and in French and singing in French was kind of a mind fuck. It was like I I I found I had a completely different voice when I sang in French. So it's like
Oh, weird. Yeah.
it's a different sounding language. So
Yeah.
obviously when you're singing, you emote differently and everything sounds different. And it's just funny. I was just like, oh, this actually works. But I actually mixed that in my studio. I did a remix of Hollow as an orchestral soundtrack thing for a movie. I made a movie as well, a 10-minute movie.
Oh, okay.
and uh and then yeah, so when it came time for this album, man, what was this? I had no intention of doing the album myself again, like recording and mixing, but I just kind of was like, I just had to go for it. And I went for it. So I forgot what your question was, but
I mean, it's more just kind of like I don't know, like it was so weird to go back and listen to the episode, which I don't normally do. Every once in a while, like check out an episode to like check on the audio quality. Um, and it's such a like you were in a weird like turning point when you came on the show last because we were just like really kind of getting in our groove. It took us like 100 and some odd episodes, but like it was getting to that point where when we started, we were talking with our friends, and then friends of friends, and then friends of friends of friends, and now I talked to total strangers from all over the world. And it's gotten to this weird point where we've had people on the show, and then like my producer has met them in a second time, and I'll be like, oh hey Tom, how's it going? And my producer will be like, oh, it's nice to meet you. And I'll be like, you've already met him before, he's been on the show. And so it's like it was weird to go back and re-listen because it was like sort of like, oh, I remember this conversation, but at the same time being like, I don't remember any of like these topics that we touched on.
yeah, fair.
And it was such a weird time. But yeah, it was just kind of like, I don't know, man. It was, I feel like you could hear it in our voices, kind of just being like, I don't know where it's all going.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like you asked about this. I think the question was about the album and how
Yeah, and
whether
then
it
how it
was
was
influenced by
influenced.
COVID. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, I mean, 100%. I mean, I think there's one song on the album. Actually, it's funny. I was actually talking to my publicist and my Canadian publicist. She was asking me for me to do a track by track of the album, and so I'm kind of revisiting each song now and
Yeah.
like what's the inspiration? I'm like, wow. And this one song, On Our Own, it's near the end of the album. I think it's the second to last track. And it's literally, I remember thinking about the song during just post COVID, kind of like, it's like, I think the opening line is lost in all the memories that we're missing. It's kind of like about being home with my wife and my kids and during COVID and kind of thinking of all the things we could be doing, but we're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But then also being happy that we're all healthy and okay. So that's kind of what the song is. And so I realized a lot of the songs, and then like the last song on the album is called Another Year Gone. And it was kind of like
Yep.
1 year of COVID, like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And then another year, I'm like, oh, okay. And it's kind of like that. And so yeah, yeah, honestly, I guess it is. I'm sure everyone keeps saying this, but it is our COVID album. So
Yeah, and it's like we have so many people ask us how long we've been running specific events, and I'm like, I don't know how to answer that question because it's like we ran it before COVID and after COVID. Do I count the year that nothing happened? Like, is that,
yeah, yeah,
it
exactly.
was such a weird. And then the other thing that I thought was funny was I was kind of asking you about like the Montreal music scene, and since then I've interviewed a lot more bands out of Montreal, and you guys have like the weirdest music scene up there in like a really good way.
Mhm.
It's like you're kind of like a retro 60s band with a sitar, and we've had Teki Teki, which is a Japanese
Yep.
band based in Montreal that does California surf music, and it's just like it's got to be like so cool up there. I mean, what is it about Montreal that kind of has almost like that world music mishmash?
Well, historically, Montreal used to be, I say now, a really cheap place to live, or low rents. It's a big college town. So it was like everyone came here. I mean, like I'm like 40. Oh my God, I think I'm
Oh,
46. I'm 46. So I've
okay.
been doing music stuffs in Montreal music scene since I was like 16. So it's been 30 years. So I've kind of seen it from the 90s when there was nothing happening.
Yeah.
Pay to play, like literally to play a show, you had to pay the venue.
Yep.
And it was like that. There was not many venues. It was really just kids going to shows. And then there was all like these art galleries, underground things happening. And then trying to build a scene, and the Arcade Fire thing came along. Godspeed before that. And it's just like, I've seen it change so much. And these days I look at, I mean, there's so many bands now and so much, but I don't know. Like Teke Teke, that I think the people in that band, I don't know them personally, but I think they've been around for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're not spring chickens, right? They're like me, kind
Oh
of
no,
thing.
I didn't mean it to give that impression. No, it just seems like, so I'm based out of Plymouth, Mass, right down the street from Plymouth Rock, and like there's a huge music scene here, but it is very almost every, there's like 40 bars and restaurants downtown, and almost all of them have music, but it's always like the same dudes playing the same cover songs.
Hmm.
Um, the bands that are kind of popular around here are usually jam bands, Grateful Dead cover bands. And but there's some like bands and musicians that are under the surface that I'm like, this dude is so much better,
Hmm.
but he's doing originals or covers of like, acoustic punk covers, and this
Yeah,
band's, and it just doesn't seem to get the same attention, and it's just kind of like a little frustrating, where you're like, they should be so much better, or they're not better, but more appreciated.
yeah. No, Montreal's. I mean, I think Montreal's a very eclectic city, man. Like the home of like Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
It's a mishmash of everything here. I mean, I look at the younger bands, and there's like great festivals like Pop Montreal, M for Montreal, and then there's the big, more mainstream ones like the Jazz Fest and all that. Then there's like Osheaga and stuff. So there's always so much happening, and yeah, I don't go to shows anymore. Really, it's like I'd much rather stay home these days. But I do see what's happening, and yeah, there's a lot of music happening these days. And like you said, it's pretty eclectic. I mean, at one point in the 2000s, like everything was Arcade Fire
Yeah.
related, and I was like, no, you don't need every band does not need to have the Arcade Fireisms in there. And I think it got tired pretty quickly. Like
Yeah.
then we went back to the weird stuff.
Nice. I mean, I love that. So are you guys looking to go on tour next year, or I mean, you said
Yeah,
you're not going to shows, but I'm assuming you're still playing shows.
yeah, that's it. I don't go to shows because I play shows. And yeah, no, we've been yeah, we have a lot of touring plans for next year, and it just feels like we did a 1 month European tour where it was like almost sold out every show. It was like we hadn't been back since just before COVID. Actually, that was the
Yeah.
last tour we did. It was February 2020 is when we did last tour in Europe, and so we returned just last month or so in September, and we didn't have a new record out or anything, and so I didn't know what to expect, and it was every show was packed. So it was nice to see that during that time, people were able to discover us. I remember because I think during COVID, I was doing like sacred sound sessions for my studio here. It was like me
Yeah, yeah,
playing.
yeah. Hmm.
I did a bunch of those, so I was staying pretty engaged. We kept releasing music, and I think people have discovered us a bit. I mean, we've been like I think next year's our 15th anniversary.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Congrats.
man,
Yeah.
time flies by. So, but anyways, all this to say, touring's changed. Touring's got a lot more expensive. So yeah, we're I think yeah, we announced a US East Coast run for March.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll have to see if you're gonna come play near me.
Well, yeah, we're playing Somerville, Massachusetts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Nice. That's
yeah,
not
at
too
the
far.
at the Rockwell, I think.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah,
After, and not to bring it up again, but after COVID, so many places like closed and changed hands, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to say I've been to the Rockwell when it was called something else.
Okay. Yeah, no, we
Was
have
it
an East
Under?
Coast run. Then there's talks of going to Australia. We're going back to Europe, and then we're going to go do the U.S. West Coast. And yeah, we have a lot of plans for next year. I'll
That's
see.
awesome.
I'll see how the album lands.
Yeah.
So, like, we've been releasing singles slowly, and the reaction's been great. But when the album comes out, that's where we can really see
Yeah,
where it's happening.
I was just checking out the Spark.
Yeah,
Super catchy tune. I really
thank you.
dug
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um and then that you released that maybe like 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago or something like that, and then a new one just dropped.
History repeating. Yeah,
Yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's such a weird way to market albums now, where they're like, "Oh, you always have to have like a song every couple of weeks,
yeah,
almost
yeah.
like leading up to the album." Which we're pretty close in age, and that's, I mean, it used to be like you drop the album, they'd release a video that day, and then it would go from there. Is this better? Do you like it better? Is it a pain in the ass? Like,
It's wow. I mean, yeah, I've been releasing music for so long. I like this. I mean, it's kind of back to singles in some ways, but also there's value to albums. So
mhm.
yeah, I mean for this album, yeah, that was the thing. I was like, do we just drop the record and kind of just do it that way? Or yeah, the singles thing is just yeah, people I don't know, man. I don't know what's better. I made a record.
Yeah,
It's I'm lucky that I feel confident enough in the album that like I think we're releasing a single every month. And so most of the album will be out by the time the album drops.
yeah. I,
So I feel
I,
confident enough in the singles that they can carry themselves. And I find it's funny because like speaking to publicists and people, it's always a letdown. Like you release the album and then that's it. Like
yeah,
especially these days, like people will talk about your record for 2 days now and then it's over. and no
Yeah,
one's
they're
going
on
to
to the
talk.
next thing. Yep.
They're on to the next thing. And so by kind of releasing singles, you're kind of being like, no, there's deeper stuff in here. And the singles like History Repeating isn't an obvious single to me, but it was a poignant message in the song. And I felt it was good to get out when we did.
Yeah, it just in my mind, it's like if you did a painting and you're like, all right, this month we're gonna release this 6 square inches of the painting. And then next month we're gonna
Slow and
release
yeah.
another 6 square inches that are not connected to those. And it because like I tend to think of like albums as like a one work, you know. And I don't know if that's just my age speaking, but like I always thought of that's my favorite album. Like I always have like the
Yeah.
hot song, but there's always like Jane's Addiction, Nothing Shocking is one of my all-time favorite albums. Like if you're gonna listen to it, you start to finish, there's something like they all connect in a way. And
Yeah. And that's interesting about this because people are being exposed to this new album as singles, but when the album comes out, it's kind of, oh, I'm repackaging it as something else. It's like The Wedding Present. I'm a huge Wedding Present fan. They did a thing back in the 90s where they released a single every month, and then then they delivered it as an album. So you kind of have a different view of what the album is.
yeah,
It's like repurposing content, as we say
evergreen
these days.
content. Yeah. It's like I use terms like that. My business partner's like, ugh. And I'm like, what? It's like, we have to have those conversations. Like, I don't have to like it
Content
though.
assets,
Yeah.
you know, all the
Image
words.
assets. And
Image.
yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Viral content.
How do you make a viral video?
Oh my god. Well, I'll be damned if I know. I haven't done that yet. So.
Yeah. Um, but you do have a solid following on YouTube. I mean, do you actively work on growing? Because that's kind of something we've been dabbling in more and more.
Mhm.
And it's like growing. You can always tell like when you've hit like a new marker in whatever algorithm it is, because all of a sudden you see like a spike in subscribers or a
Yeah.
spike in downloads. Do you actively try to get people to sign up, or is it more just like we put it up there and if you find it, you find it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think it's just been in the past year thing. I feel like the dial's moved a bit for us.
Yeah.
I guess the big thing is Spotify, right? Like that's how you gauge what's happening with the band. And oddly enough, our Spotify numbers are better than bands at our level should be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Whatever that means. It's
Yeah.
like I like things, and then going on tour, and just I remember I saw that and I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird. Maybe we got into like this algorithm, but is this going to translate to live? And
Yeah.
then I did the European tour, and it did translate. So I'm like, okay, and so it's like, and then like you said, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. It's kind of all moving. I mean, I think people value consistency and longevity in some ways. Like we've been
Yeah.
doing this, like when we've never been the hot band of the week or anything like that. We've kind of always done what we've done. We keep putting out records, we keep touring, and keeping like people know who, like our fans care about us and I care about them. Like I go to shows, after the show, I'll go to the merch table and talk to everybody. And I made a conscious effort to do that because if they don't feel, especially these days, I mean, to be able to connect with people, it's hard.
Right.
But we're so connected, but so disconnected at the same time. Like people can listen to my music whenever they want, but do they feel attachment to it? And you need to kind of put a face to that. And I make the effort for that kind of thing.
And that's always been kind of my premise with this show is like, I don't plan questions. I'm sure I've said this like 100 times on the show, but I feel like if listeners kind of listen to the show and they'd be like, oh, he seems like a really cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go check out his music, because I feel like a good number of our listeners is probably the first time, unless they went back and listened to the past catalog, that they've heard of Elephant Stone. And so so it's like, because I know I'm that kind of person where if I see someone in an interview and I connect with them as a person, then I'm going to become a fan of their work. Then I'm going to follow them. Then I'm going to see what else they've done. To me, that's, I think, that kind of personal connection makes me more interested in what they're doing.
Yeah, it makes it less disposable, right? There's
Yeah,
depth. There's depth to that kind of connection with art. Like if for real art, you kind of like, mind you, if the artist is a horrible human being, that's something different. But
true.
you want to appreciate the art, then also appreciate the artist. And I think, especially these days, that counts. That counts for a lot. That it can't just be disposable art anymore. Well, there's always going to be art like that.
Yeah,
Like like I like Dua Lipa. Like I think she's amazing. Like I think her stuff's great. But I put the music on and I enjoy it. But does it bring an emotional connection to me? I'm like, not so much.
right. It's something to tap your feet to or sing along to in the
Yeah,
car.
but it's great. That kind of art has so much value. Like I love pop music like that. But then there's the deeper stuff that I've, mind you, it's also the stuff that I grew up with, and I'm still like, I grew up like Teenage Fan Club. They were my band when I was like 13, and
Yeah,
to this day, even though I don't love the records, as the new records, band can't always be at that same level.
right.
Still have a deep attachment to them. But they always say that, like, I read this thing that's like the music, mind you, this are people that aren't active music listeners, but when you're when you reach a certain age, you kind of just return to the music you listened to when you were a teenager, and that's the music you listen to. If you're not willing to discover,
Right.
and you're one of those people that are always like, oh, there's nothing new that's good, that kind of BS.
Oh God, that stuff. It's weird as I've gotten older. Like ageism, like most people think of ageism as like being dismissive of older people. The older I get, I see people are so dismissive of younger people in the
Yeah,
exact same way their parents were. And
exactly.
they're like, these kids are so entitled. And you'd be like, oh, the 13-year-old who's had everything done for them every
Yeah.
day of their life. And now you're like, oh, by the way, you need to do all this other stuff. And like, I don't want to.
No, it's history repeating, man.
Yeah. I remember you know, I heard it or saw this conversation, and I'm sure I'm gonna just have to summarize it because I can't do it word for word. But basically, it was this guy saying how like lazy and entitled this new generation is, and how they'll never amount to anything, and blah blah blah, like the standard. And it was Socrates. It's like it's never changed, and
Never
and
change,
there's
right?
always the new invention. When the bicycle came out, they're like, this is going to lead to promiscuity, and
We
it's
have we have AI now, right? That's
yeah,
the new one.
yeah, and it's just no matter what it is, the older generation is going to be like, I don't like it because it's new.
Yeah. No, and I think that's something I know. I intentionally always try to keep an open mind for anything new. And I remember when I was younger, I was kind of like, oh no, that's shit. That's not good. But now I'm kind of like, oh, there's a lot of value in that I never would have thought of. And also, it's trying to tame your false ego, right, and be more open to new experiences and things.
Yeah, yeah. My other thing is, I know you have kids. I also have kids, and I'm always being like, oh, what are you listening to? What are you listening to? Or what band did you go see? And my youngest is like, oh, it's this band called Ghost, and I listen to it, and I'm like, I just don't think I'm the demographic for this. Because I mean they pull a huge crowd and people love
Oh,
them,
is
but it's
Ghost
just,
the one with the wear the mask,
yeah, I mean they
or the
look
Sean?
cool,
Because there's the
but
Sean Lennon one too, right? The Ghost of a Saber-toothed Tiger. And
oh, I don't know that one. No,
oh no,
it's the one with like the masks,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, those guys. Yeah,
they look great. And then I heard the music and I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
I'm not feeling
I'm lucky.
it.
My kids, I have three of my two youngest are so into Bowie. It's amazing.
Oh, I love Bowie.
My 8-year-old knows all the words to Moon Age Daydream.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, nice.
it's, I think it's okay so far.
Yeah, the band that kind of I've been getting back into, that is, maybe I don't know if it's a regional thing or if it's all over, has a surprisingly strong fan base, is the Talking Heads.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
knew of
That's
him, like whatever. And then I was listening. I've had him in the car the other day on Spotify, and just every one song that came on, I'm like, man, they had a lot of hits.
yeah, it's surprising they did. Yeah, yeah, I know. That's and like their legacy's grown so much, and then like, and I've seen it like the younger music scene people. It's
Yeah,
Montreal's like even from the Arcade Fire onwards, it was very talking hits focused, and even now,
really
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Montreal
interesting.
has a yeah. We love our David Byrne.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That's a big thing here.
well, he's kind of local to down here, so I wasn't sure if it was
Okay,
uh
no, no, especially because they just re-released Stop. Was it Stop Making Sense?
yeah.
Their big concert footage.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah,
reissued that recently, so I think that's why that's everyone. It's all talking heads all the time now, which I
yeah.
love. They're great. So
Oh yeah, it's fan, and it was just like in the car. I was just like, man, like every single one of these songs is like a hit, and
yeah,
then
it's a
there'd be
hit. I
that
know
one
it.
where you'd be like, I don't know this one, but it's still pretty good,
I
Like
mean,
they're
what a great rhythm section.
yeah,
Like husband wife team. There, Tina Weymouth and Chris. I don't remember the drummer's name, but what a great, solid, funky rhythm section. You know?
yeah, all Inebri-art students.
Yeah.
So, so we were talking about you got plans for a big tour. Um, are you currently working on new music? Or are you kind of like just taking a break and letting
Oh no,
the
I
new
don't.
album kind of?
No, I don't take breaks. I keep myself busy. No, I have. So we finished that. Um, I've my back catalog. My first album, Seven Seas, never got released on vinyl, and then so I did. The Seven Seas came out in 2009, and the Glass Box EP came out in 2010.
Yeah.
So I was never happy with the sonics of the Glass Box. Um, so I've gone back and remixed it, and so um, I work with this US label called Little Cloud Records out of Portland.
Okay.
They're great.
Portland, Maine, or
Yeah,
okay.
Portland, Oregon,
Oh, okay.
and like they've reshoot a lot of the Dandy Warhols records. Great label. Mike that runs it, great guy. We become close, fast friends, and so he reissued my 2013 self-titled album. That's like kind of our big album.
Yeah.
So we reissued that on vinyl, double gatefold. He's helping with a new record, so we're going through my back catalog. So we're coming out with the Seven Seas Glass Box double vinyl, and then I'm also right now remixing our 2014 album because I was never like again the mix with that. Like back then, I just didn't know. Like I would have someone mix it, and I'd be like, okay, this is good, I guess, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you don't know, you don't know. You just go along with it. Like I figured I already recorded a great record that I think is going to be great. I'll give it. I'll work with somebody that I know that's done great work in the past. And unfortunately, the mix. Only until recently, I realized it's the mix that's not happening. So I've gone back and I've been remixing it. So again, we're going to be that's vinyl's been out of press, so we're going to reissue that next year as well. And then I have another band called Mean,
Mean. Okay.
Mien. It's me, Alex from the Black Angels, Tom from the Horrors from the London, and then John Mark. He has a project called Old Fire. So we put out a record in 2018. It took us 7 years to make. Like we were
Wow.
just it was like sending
Yeah.
files back and forth between our main band's records. So again, it's like 5 years later, we're almost at the mixing stage of the new album. So I'm gonna be mixing that in about a month.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm really exercising my mixing chops these days. So
Do you like having those kind of, because it sounds like Mean is kind of like when you're not actively working on Elephant Stone, you're like, okay, now I have time to work on this. Do you like kind of having those two projects going simultaneously? Like me personally, I love that kind of thing because I can get really bored sometimes.
Mhm.
So I just like to shift gears and it kind of keeps me fresh and going. And, I'll be working on something and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to go write this and then I'm going to go do this. And it just, that jumping around keeps my brain busy.
Yeah, no, because Elephant Stone for me is all consuming. Like I'm
Yeah.
always thinking about it. Like for the writing, recording, everything. It's all like I'm driving that project. With Mean, I can kind of take a passenger seat, you know, and someone else like JM, he's like everything kind of gets filtered through him.
Yeah.
Like we send tracks, he sends it back, and so something's always happening. It's not always me. So yeah, I find Mean's been great, and I'm not the singer in Mean.
Yeah.
I play bass,
Yeah.
Alex. So it's nice. It's really, yeah. I think it's a also musically it's much darker and more krautrock rock than Elephant Stone, and less verse chorus bridge kind of structure, as less pop than Elephant
Yeah.
Stone. So yeah, it's a nice compliment to what I do with Elephant Stone.
So I was talking earlier that I was checking out the videos, the new ones, the Spark, and I blanked on the other name of the other one that just came out.
Not
Sorry.
history repeating.
Yes. How much are you involved in the whole like making the video process? Is that another fun part of what you do, or you're just like, oh, that has to be done, or do
Yeah,
you?
well, I've realized that like having visual content is always good, and it gives life to the song, and also like it's funny. My day job, I work in a music company as well. I'm like a tech writer there, but speaking to one of someone that's kind of in charge of content there.
Yeah.
She used to work on radio. She's like, I hate music videos. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, I never watch music videos because it colors my idea of the song.
I could totally see that
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, like I can like it's happened where I thought a song was okay, then I watch a video and then I love the song, or vice versa. I
Yeah.
love the song, I saw the video, and I'm like, oh. And so yeah, I'm very conscious. I'm just trying not to make anything too horrible, but yeah, no, I like especially for all the videos for the new album. I've been working with Lorraine Jusserin. She great Montreal animator. Um, she actually worked on that Hollow movie I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
was like a 10-minute animated film based on the Hollow story. It's like the end of times kind of thing. So I've worked with her on that. And so yeah, just with all these new videos, I've been collaborating with her. I'll have an idea for the video. I'm like for the Spark, for instance, I had a super basic thing, us playing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it's such a pure video. It's
Yeah,
a
I
band
know.
playing,
Yeah,
kind of psychedelic visuals, but it's not.
yeah. It's
And
just like how deep do you want to go? Like I like seeing guys. I like not guys or girls playing instruments
yeah,
and moving along. I'm like, that's great. You know?
yeah. I mean, and it's also the kind of video that is not going to cause you to be like, ugh,
Yeah,
that ruined that song, because you're just like, oh, they're just playing, or
yeah,
I've always loved concert, footage, and
yeah.
that kind of stuff is great. In working with that animator whose name I will not try to pronounce because
Lorraine Jusserin.
sure. um, I love kind of that when working in collaboration, because it kind of always comes up with ideas that you didn't expect. Was there like a moment where like you're like, oh, this is kind of what I'm thinking, and they came back with something so different that you're like, or that's so much better than
Yeah,
what
for
I was
sure.
thinking.
Definitely working on the Hollow film was like, I was like, I had an idea. This is the storyline. You create the world, and so she created this whole world. And then right away, I was like, okay, well, we can work together. And then we've done. We just finished another video for the next single with her as well, and her aesthetic is so great, and taste counts for everything.
Yeah,
Skill is one thing, but taste is 100%. Like if you don't have good taste, like or
yeah,
no, or you don't have tastes that align with each other,
yeah.
it's not gonna work.
And it's I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna sound like I'm shitting on them, but I'm not. Is the Sex Pistols not the most skilled musicians in the world? Well, but they made great music. So there's something about whether it's the taste, or like you're just your creative angle that can make up for a lot of work. And then there's people that I know who are amazing artists, but if they're not shown something to draw,
Yeah, no, it's
you know,
like I'm friends with the All Allahs,
yeah,
and it's cool. Like I heard the new record, and I'm like, it's different than what they've always done, but I'm like, but they have good taste,
yeah,
and the sounds are there, so it's interesting. I just like I like when art surprises you and it's not what you expect. And then, like I mentioned, Teenage Fan Club, who's always been my favorite band, and just I don't know. Maybe as you get older, your taste changes,
Very
right?
much so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, and I know mine has like for sure. I'm sure we have Elephant Stone fans that like our earlier stuff better than the newer stuff because my my taste is modified,
Yeah.
but it doesn't always align with everybody. Yeah.
So the one thing I really like in talking to you specifically is you always refer to your music as your art, and you have like a movie that it coincides with your music and animation. I feel like you look at it differently as where you're like it is I don't know if one piece, but like you look at it as an art form and like kind of I don't feel like you look at it just as music. I feel like there's more to it.
Yeah, no,
Is that
it's yeah,
fair?
like that's fair. I'm like during COVID, it's funny. I was like, I've always like been interested in art history, and it's like but I've always appreciated visual art, but I didn't really understand. Yeah, to understand where we are, you have to understand where we came from.
Right.
So I spent another thing during COVID besides baking sourdough and pizza and stuff. I also uh brushed up on art history, and
Nice.
so I gained a lot of insight into visual art and um how and I drew the parallels with that with music as well, and hence mixing and songwriting and the contrast of light and dark. And so yeah, I do art is art, so I can appreciate so many different forms of art. And I like to think my music isn't not that someone well yeah, there's pop music out there that's made to be easily digestible and
Mm-hmm.
moved on and then passed on, but stuff I make, it means a lot to me, and there's depth when I'm creating it in the words, in the sounds, and in the songs themselves. But yeah, no, definitely like it's the whole package. Performing live, the same thing. It's an art form as well, right?
Do you like plan? I don't want to say plan out like a stage show, but like, do you think about kind of like what you're gonna have on stage? Do you put like we've all seen Kiss perform. Like they have a huge
Yeah,
show,
yeah.
but like, do you decorate the stage in different way? Like, because
No, it's
especially
like well,
on your level, that you're like, okay, if I'm gonna bring a cool couch, that I have to bring a couch.
yeah, we're not like the 1975. We're bringing our living room or anything,
Yeah,
but no, it's like well, for us, I mean, like I play the sitar,
yeah,
and always and how to incorporate that in the live show was always interesting for me. For there was a time where I was like, oh, people define us with a sitar, but I don't want to just be that.
yeah,
So we
yeah,
kind of downplay it. But as I've gotten wiser with my age, I've kind of realized that this is something that not many people are exposed to. So yeah, I mean, our live show, I've toured with like the Black Angels and stuff, and with crazy projections and so much shit going on. I'm like, that's amazing.
yeah,
But like, we're just a four-piece band, and we're pretty dynamic musicians, and we have a sitar.
yeah,
So it's like I always arrange our set list as though it's like a journey. Like it's dark. I walk on stage to the sitar, and it's just me and the sitar opening up the show, and it's kind of like this hypnotic thing. And then the band slowly comes on stage and builds upon this drone, and then it just modulates into a song, and then we go off, and then there's peaks and valleys. So it's a journey, but we haven't done much. I just don't have the time. Like
yeah,
it's a very small operation. I mean, when we're touring, we used to have a sound guy, but now it's like things are so expensive,
oh yeah. I mean,
and
it's crazy.
touring is not easy anymore. Not that it
Yeah,
ever was, but it's become a lot harder. So I've kind of pared it down to just the four of us. Like we did Europe for 4 weeks, just the four of us driving around. It's the
yeah,
first time I've ever done that. Usually we have a driver in Europe, but I couldn't afford it this time, and I
yeah.
did
I
all
mean,
the
it's got to
driving.
be such like a commitment. Like we just ran one of our biggest events ever, and we lost a good chunk of change on it, and it was just like, all right, we learned some lessons, and
Yeah,
but it's also kind of like trying to keep it in mind, being like, well, it costs money to be in business. We learned a lot, but also hopefully we gain some fans that next year when we run this event, they'll be like, oh, I'm definitely going back. And then you build on that. And
Yeah, no, it's like you said, like I see it as art, but I also see it as my job.
yeah,
So especially when I'm on tour, like I'm like, it's my job. Like I'm driving the van after the show. The guys will want to go out partying. Like, no problem. I gotta sleep because I gotta sing and drive and do everything again tomorrow. And so I take it serious enough that I don't want to like. I remember I got sick on tour, and so I was like, I'm gonna have to cancel some
was
shows.
this when you brought COVID back to the United States?
It's all
Or
us.
to Canada.
You're not supposed to tell them.
Sorry.
But like I almost canceled some shows in Spain, but then after I was like, no, I can't do this and blah blah blah. And I forgot what the point.
The whole point of this show is to go off the rails.
Yeah, I talk a lot, but no, it's but yeah, the live show. I mean, yeah, no, it's
I can't even imagine. I just know because we just work in basically the two states we're like associated with here, but like trying to promote a show and sell tickets abroad, my hat's off to you, because that's, I get stressed out when we're like low ticket sales, 2 days before an event, and all I have to do is drive an hour, let alone fly somewhere and stay in hotels.
It's a bit of a crapshoot, you just have to do your best and hope for the best.
Well, we hope for the best for you guys with this coming tour, East Coast tour, and you said you'll be in Somerville in March, so I'm going to check that out.
Yeah,
but where can our listeners go to find out the rest of your tour dates and get the albums and all the promotional?
Elephantstone.ca is the place to be.
And so you do have vinyl. You have some more remasters that you're working on that'll be coming out. And the album Back Into the Dream drops February 23rd, right?
Yes, sir.
I got the date right this time. I fixed my note. But man, thank you so much for coming back on. It was good to kind of catch up.
It was great to chat with you again.
Yeah. And listeners, we'll be back again next week. And like I said, make sure you check out Elephant Stone when they come to your town.
All right. Thanks, Lanity.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at inebriart.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at inebriart.com. So thanks again for listening.